Hello, everybody. Today I'm gonna share another story with you. It happened in Tang Dynasty. So, the brief introduction is that more than 1,000 years ago, a demoted of official heard a woman playing music from another bowl on a dark river. She had once been famous in the capital, and he had once belonged there too. His name, he's a poet. His name is Bai Juyi. Now both of them had been pushed to the edge of the world. This is not only a poem about music, it's about what happened when two strangers recognize the same loneliness in each other. So, the name of the poem is Pipa. It's the song of the Pipa. So the preface is in the 10th year of the Yuanhe era, I was demoted and sent to serve as a minor official in Zhejiang. The next autumn, I was seen a friend of by the river when I heard a woman playing the pipa, a Chinese lute, on a nearby boat. Her music had the sound of Chang'an. Chang'an is the old imperial capital. So I asked who she was. She told me that she had once been a celebrated musician in Chang'an. She had trained under a famous master. As she grew older, the beauty the world once demanded of her began to fade, and she married a merchant. He cared more for profit than companionship. She was left drifting from place to place, lonely on the river of southern China. So I invited her to drink with us and asked her to play. Afterwards, she told us about her youth, the music, the applause, the luxury, and the crowds. Then she told us what came after: aging, abandonment, loneliness, and exile. I had been demoted for 2 years and had told myself that I had accepted. But after hearing the story, I finally felt the pain of being cast aside. So I wrote this poem for her. I called it The Sound of the Pipa. So when I'm reading the poem, it's from the poet Bai Juyi. So the first part is the river at night. One autumn night, I was saying goodbye to a friend by the river. Maple leaves and river reed trembled in the cold wind. We stepped onto a boat and raised our cups of fairy well wine. But there was no music, and without music, the wine couldn't make us merry. The goodbye grew heavier. The river stretched into darkness, and a cold moon seemed to sink into the water. Then suddenly, we heard a pipa playing somewhere across the river. I forgot to go home, and my friend forgot to leave. We called out asking who was playing. The music stopped. For a long time, no one answered. So we moved our boat closer, lit more lamps, poured more wine, and invited a musician to join us. The second part is a woman behind the instrument. After we called and called, she finally came out. But she held the pipa in front of her face, half hidden behind it. She adjusted the strings, she tested full notes, and then came one of the most beautiful lines in Chinese poetry. Before the melody had even formed, the feeling had already arrived. Before she played a single complete song, we already heard her sadness. Every string seemed to hold back at a thought. Every note sounds like the complaint of life that had not gone as hoped. She lowered her eyes and began to play. Her hands moved slowly across the string. At first, the music was graceful, like the elegant court music once heard in the capital. Then it changed. So, in the first, while the music symbolized her life. Then the low string crashed like a sudden rainstorm. The high string whispered like private grief. The loud the loud and soft sounds tangled together like large pearls and tiny pearls scattered across a jade plate. Then the music became lighter, almost playful. One moment it sounded like arrows seen beneath spring flower. The next, like a stream trapped beneath ice, still flowing but barely able to move. Then the sound slowed, the string seemed to freeze. The music stopped, but the silence was not empty. A hidden sorrow began to rise, and in the silence, nothing spoke louder than what couldn't be said. Then suddenly the music exploded, like a silver vessel breaking water bursting everywhere. Like armored cavalry charging to battle, the blade striking against blade. And then, when one final sweep across the heart of the instrument, all four strings run out, like silk tearing apart. The sun was over. Every boat on the river had gone silent. The only thing left was the pale autumn moon trembling in the water. Then, the next part is her story, from fame to being forgotten. She slowly put down her plectrum. She straightened her clothes. She composed her face, and then she told us who she was. I was once a woman of Chang'an. I live near Hama Ridge, the entertainment district of the capital. By the time I was very young, my name has already been placed among the best performers in the Imperial Music Academy. I learned Pipa when I was 13. She told us that every time she played, even master musician praised her. Every time she dressed for a performance, other performers envied her. The wealthy young men of Chang'an competed to give her gifts. After one performance, she could receive more crimson silk than she could count. When she beat the rising so fiercely that jeweled hair combs broke. Wine spilled onto wine spilled onto her red silk dress. Her youth passed in music party, applause and admiration. Spring came, autumn passed, and she thought it would last forever, but it didn't. The musician she knew left. The old woman who is in charge of the entertainment house died. And one day she realized that she was no longer young. The carriage stopped coming, the man stopped waiting outside her door. She was still talented, she could still play, but the world no longer come to listen. She had no choice but to marry a merchant. But merchant value profit more than companionship. Last month her husband left for Fuliang to buy tea. He left her alone on a boat at the river edge. The moon was bright, the river was cold, the boat was empty, and sometime deep at night she dreamed of her youth. In her dream she was young again. The room was full, the music was loud, people were laughing, then she woke up, and tears had washed through her makeup. Then the last part, two people at the edge of the world. I had already been signing since I first heard her play. But after hearing her story, I couldn't hold back my grief. Then I said we were both people cast adrift at the edge of the world. Why should strangers need an introduction before they understand each other? I told her that I too had been sent away from Chang'an. Last year I left the imperial capital. I was demoted and sent to Shenyang. I spent much of my time seeking bed. This place was quiet, remote, and lonely. There was no orchestrate here. No refined song, no elegant music from the capital, only yellow reeds, bitter bamboo, and cries of cocoons, and the calls of gibbons in the distance. On spring mornings, by the river I drink alone. On autumn nights under the moon I drink alone. Of course, there were local songs. There were village flutes, but the sounds were rough, tango, and hard to listen to. Then I said to her, "But tonight, hearing you play, it feels like hearing music from heaven. It has cleared the dust from my eyes." And then I asked her, "Please don't refuse me. Sit down and play one more piece. And I will write a new poem for you. I'll call it The Sound of the Pipa." That's the name of the poem. She stood there for a long time after hearing my words. Then she sat down again. She tightened the string and began to play. But this time the music was even sadder than before. It was no longer simply a performance. It was the sound of someone realizing that another person had truly understood her. Everyone on the boat covered their faces and cried. But who cried the most? The demoted official of Jiangzhou. My blue robe was soaked with tears. So that's a poem. And then now what I'm gonna talk about is why this poem is the classic arts in Chinese culture, and why almost every Chinese know about this. And there are so many verses that are so well known across throughout history. Even now, everybody knows. So it's about two people who never should have understand each other. One is a disgraced government official, the other is a former courtesan and a musician, meeting for one night on a dark river and realizing they had been living the same tragedy. The first thing that makes this film heartbreaking is that she did not lose her talent, she lost her audience. When this woman was young, she was famous in Chang'an, the capital of Tang Dynasty. She was trained by elite musicians. Powerful men came to hear her play. Rich young aristocrats competed to throw silk and money at her performance. She was not invisible, she was celebrated. In modern terms, she was something like a star performer, someone with real skill, real presence, and such a great audience that couldn't get enough of her. But time passed. She get older. The people who once filled her doorstep stopped coming. This is one of the coolest things. Nobody tells us that she became worthy at music. Her hands still were. Her technique is still extraordinary. Her art is still powerful enough to make an entire boat fall silent. What disappeared was not her ability, is the word's willingness to listen. A lot of people don't feel because they lose their talent. They fail because they were moves on. The platform changed, the audience changed, the market changed. People get older, attention goes somewhere else. And suddenly, someone who once mattered deeply is left wondering whether anyone still remember what they were capable of. So that night, she was not only performing a song, but playing the song of the life that went from being celebrated to being forgotten. And the second thing that there is a very famous line that everyone in China knows. We are both exiled at the edge of the world. Why do we need to know to have known each other before. So this line not just saying we are both sad so we understand each other. It's much deeper than that. So Bai Juyi, the writer of the poem, is a government official. He is educated, male, socially respected. But she was a woman, professional musician, and someone whose social value depended heavily on youth, beauty, and the people willing to pay hear her performance. So at the time, they're not equal. They come from different gender, social classes, and different lives. Normally, they would pass each other without ever really speaking. But on the river, both of them being pushed away from center of the society. She been pushed out of Chang'an, out of beauty, out of applause. He had been pushed out of political life, demoted and sent away from the capital to distant place. She lost her stage, he lost his position. And suddenly they are not separated by status anymore. They were connected by exile. They are both people whose life who had been reduced, replaced, and abandoned by the world around them. This is why the moment is so powerful. Bai Juyi had been telling himself that he was fine. In a preface, he said after being demoted, he had tried to live peacefully and accepted his fate. But after hearing her play and hearing the story of the musician, he realized that he was not fine at all. She played the grief that she couldn't admit to himself. He thinks that he's listening to her tragedy, but then he realized she's playing his. And this is what makes the connection so moving. It's not romance. It's not about a woman rescuing a. It's not about a man rescuing a woman. It's about two strangers recognize a same wood in each other. Sometimes it's a stranger who has suffered in a different way, has arrived at the same emotional place. It's not your friend, not your family, not someone who shared your life. And then comes the third and most beautiful part. Bai Juyi can't save her. He cannot send her back to capital. He cannot make her young again. He cannot bring back the people who once came to hear her. He cannot change the merchant who leaves her alone. He cannot repair the world that made her disposable. But what he can do, one thing is listen. He listened seriously. He did not treat her as background entertainment. He doesn't see her just as another anonymous woman playing music on a boat. He hears her all life inside the sound of her instrument. And he sees something extraordinary. Please don't refuse. Sit down and play one more piece. I'll write a poem for you. That poem becomes the sound of the Pipa. A woman who has been forgotten by the world is suddenly being seen again. Not consumed, not judged, not reduced to stereotype, but seen. Her music became a poem, his sorrow became literature, her private grief becomes something that can survive more than 1,000 years throughout the history. And when she hears what Bai Juyi wrote for her, she stands there for a long time without speaking. She sat down again and began to play. Why the music is sadder than before? Because before she was playing her pain alone, but now she knows someone understands it. And being understand doesn't always make you stop crying. Sometimes you make you cry harder. Because for the first time, you don't have to carry the all weight of your life by yourself. By the end, everyone on the boat is crying. And the person crying the most is Bai Juyi himself. He began the night as the one who seems powerful, the educated official, the man with a title, the man who could write. She seems like the one who needed sympathy, but at the end, she has become the person who makes him finally confront his own pain. She doesn't need him to explain her life to her. She helps him understand his own. That's why this poem survived more than 1,000 years. It's not about music, it's about what happened when one human being truly hears another. She tells him, "This is what my life has been," and he answered, "I heard you." And well, that's a story, a very good one. And maybe this poem feel a little bit personal to me. I came to US by myself, and there has been moments that I feel far from the life that I thought I would have. Far from. And I think that's what this poem understand so deeply. Sometimes you don't need someone to save you. You need someone to hear the part of life that you have been carrying in silence. Like, I'm here, almost nobody knows. I feel like I've been shut out from life, shut out from this world. I feel like it's like a dream now. I've been away from the world I've been living, everything I've been familiar with, and I don't really have someone to understand all the hardships and the difficulties that I met. But now I'm making all those videos. I want to start from ancient China, all the story happened in the history, and then I'll follow a timeline from the ancient to modern Chinese culture and many things interesting. I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so much. If you like it, you can subscribe and share it with your friends, or maybe you can get something out of it. Do some research, or if you have any interesting opinions or suggestion, you can leave a comment or email me. Welcome for any suggestions and improvement. Thank you.